2, 1, go time. Hi, I'm Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. So glad that you could join me today for part 2 of our Disney with a baby under 1 tips and tricks. So don't mind me looking down at my phone every once in a while because that's where I have my notes. Alright, so let me get right off the bat. During my tips and tricks number 1, I mentioned secret entrances and I forgot to mention a couple of them. I only talked about the Epcot secret entrances, but there's actually more secret entrances that you should know about. And so before I even get started on today's video's tips and tricks, I want to get that out of the way. So something to keep in mind that some of these aren't technically secret entrances, but they will help you get into the park a little bit faster. So let's start with Magic Kingdom, the biggest park of them all. The best way that I have found to get into the park faster is by eliminating bag check, and there's only 2 ways that you can do that. 1, don't bring a bag, but most likely if you have a baby under 1, you have not only a bag but a stroller with all of your things in it, so that one's going to be impossible for you. So that in that case, I would do my number 2 tip. If possible, if you're driving, park your car at the Polynesian, the Contemporary, or at the Grand Floridian. All 3 of those are on a monorail loop. And if you can park your car at one of those locations, you can actually go through bag check there first, get on the monorail, and then go through and just have to go through the ticket center without having to go through bag check again at the Magic Kingdom. And that's super, super helpful by cutting off a ton of time, because sometimes those bag check lines are crazy long. And if you go at the Polynesian, there's 2 people in front of you from the resort, you know, it's not a crazy long line. So that's my secret entrance tip for Magic Kingdom. And then the other secret entrance I wanted to talk about was at Animal Kingdom. Now, unfortunately, this one does not help you avoid the bag check line. And the bag check line at Animal Kingdom since Pandora opening has been crazy. It's just a mess. But once you get through the bag check line, you can go to 2 different entrances. The first one is your regular entrance. There's a bunch of queues and lines and people, you know, shoving their way through that way. What I recommend though is jut off to the left and find the Rainforest Cafe. Once you find the Rainforest Cafe, you can kind of work your way through their shop. And when you get to the end of their shop, there's an exit. That exit leads you directly to an entrance into the park. That entrance never has a line, or at least hasn't had a line before. If this catches on, maybe it will, but it normally doesn't have a very long line to get into the park, and you can just scan your Magic Band or your ticket and just head right in, straight through there. And like I said, it doesn't get you through the bag check, which tends to take a really long time to get through that line, but it does at least get you into the park faster, which can be really nice, especially when you have a baby under 1 and you're really trying to get through that crowd into a place where you can kind of get them engaged and having fun with them instead of just stuck in a line. So yeah, so I'm glad that I was able to bring those things up. Sorry that I forgot to mention them in my previous video, but let's get started on today's tips and tricks. My first tip for bringing a baby under 1 to Disney in today's video is meeting characters through character dining. I did talk a little bit about some of the character dining experiences in my previous tips video, but I want to talk specifically about meeting the characters. When you have a baby under 1, it can be really cool for them to meet characters, but they don't really get it the same way an older kid does, and they don't really care about getting an autograph or even getting a picture really. They want to see them, touch them, feel their hair. My daughter loved pulling on Pluto's whiskers and playing with his ear, you know, looking at the gems that all the princesses had on their dresses. She loved that interaction with them, but she didn't care so much about getting a picture, getting an autograph, things like that. And because of that, what we found was really important was getting those character dining experiences, because if we could sit down, eat a meal, and have a character come to us and then let her have that little enjoyable, you know, experience with them, and then not have to worry about using a fast pass to meet a character or standing in a very long line with an infant to meet a character, it honestly was a game changer for us. I have been to Disney with babies in the past with my nieces and nephews, and we have waited in very long lines, and it's very difficult when they are that little and you can't explain to them, oh, Pluto's taking a break, he's gonna come right back. You have to say, you know, I'm sorry as they're getting fussy, or you have to decide maybe to get out of line, which really sucks if you spent a good amount of time sitting in that line. So for us, truly character dining experience was the way to go. I will say though, I booked 2 character dining meals the entire time we were there, and I thought that that was the perfect number. We did one at Cinderella's castle so we could meet the princesses, and we did one at Ohana so that she could at least meet Mickey and a couple other characters. I wouldn't do too many. Don't overload yourself with character meals because they can be a little bit draining. You are unable to really sit and enjoy your meal the entire time because you're constantly interrupted by the characters coming. It's a great experience on one hand, but on the other hand, it is a little bit draining, and there are going to be times when you just want to sit down and eat a meal. So keep that in mind while you're planning your meals. My second tip for this video would be to make sure that you pack the essentials. So there are certain things that are going to be necessary, obviously, in any diaper bag. You want your diapers, your wipes, your cream, a bottle, you know, things like that. But what's really important to keep in mind is that you're also going to want things that are Disney or Florida specific, like a stroller fan, sunscreen, a sun hat, maybe some bug spray, a rain cover for your stroller, an umbrella. Things like that are going to be extremely important for us. It rained almost every day we were there. Having the rain cover and actually having a poncho that we could toss over the whole stroller too when we went on our indoor ride or something like that was essential for us. Having a sun hat, having a change of clothes was a big deal too. Some of the days you go to the park and it starts out cool and you want to have them in a sweatshirt and long pants, but then it becomes 85 degrees and you want to be able to have them in shorts and a tank top or maybe just a onesie. So having changes of clothes in the diaper bag was a really big deal for us as well. With a little baby like that, that temperature changes can make such a big deal to them and their comfort level. I think it's important to keep that in mind. Those other essentials that I mentioned are really important to have too. That brings me to my third tip for the day, which is bring or rent a stroller. It is so important when you have a baby that size to have a stroller with you, not only to keep all of the things that I mentioned previously and just to throw your diaper bag underneath the stroller, but also for, like I mentioned in my first video, taking naps or just ease of being able to transport them around the park. The parks are extremely stroller friendly, and there's plenty of places for you to park them if you need to for a little while. What we ended up doing a lot of the times was we brought our carrier as well. We have an Ergo baby carrier, and we would occasionally park our stroller, put her in the Ergo baby carrier, and just carry her around the park that way for a while, or especially if we were going in and off a ride. Like on Peter Pan's flight, we just wore her on the ride. And that made things a lot easier for us as well. So I recommend bringing a stroller though, because walking around the parks, I mean, we had a Fitbit on and we made 30 to 35,000 steps every single day walking around the parks. And I can only imagine doing that carrying a baby the entire time. So having the stroller was a really big deal for us. On a side note, with your stroller, I would recommend marking it with something that's an identifier for you, because occasionally when you do park your strollers off the side of the ride, the cast members need to move them in order to make the space more available and accessible for new strollers to come and get parked. So if they move your stroller and you come off the ride, you might have no idea where it is. So tying something around the handle, or on Etsy, a lot of places like that make signs that you can like strap to it that have your name or some kind of identifying information so that you know where to find your stroller when you get off the ride and you're not searching for it or asking cast members or frantic thinking it got stolen or something like that. And also a lot of people have the same stroller. You know, there's only so many different stroller brands out there, and especially if you're renting one through a stroller rental company, I'm sure they rent out a lot of the same kind. So you're going to want to definitely have that to be able to identify your stroller easily. My next tip for having a baby at Disney, and I know I mentioned previously in my last video that you want to plan your mornings, or at least that for us planning our mornings was a really big deal. I would recommend, if you're going to rope drop any parks. And side note, rope drop means getting to the park before it actually opens to the public. They let you into a certain amount and then they block it off with a rope. And then when they actually open up, they open that rope and allow you to go in, and then you can be one of the first people to get on a ride or to get to a specific character meet and greet or something like that. So you can rope drop at any park you want. A lot of people choose to rope drop Animal Kingdom so that they can make it to Pandora. And the one recommendation I would make, especially with a baby, if your baby is at all interested in Frozen, which my daughter still is, she's obsessed with Olaf. And if they're wanting to meet, or if you want them to meet Anna and Elsa, or you want them to be able to ride the Frozen ride, I highly recommend that you take them to rope drop at Epcot, and then make your way over to the Norway Pavilion first thing in the morning. As soon as the rope drops, go on the left side, walk up past Mexico, and the second country you hit is going to be Norway. And then immediately get in line to meet Anna and Elsa first. Go through the line to meet Anna and Elsa. You will meet them within 5 minutes of it opening, and then they're gonna let you out through the back exit, and you'll be right around the corner from where you need to go for the Frozen ride, and you won't wait more than 20 minutes. If you do it that way, you can knock out those two things that otherwise have hour and a half long lines later in the day, and you can get those done in less than 40 minutes. The reason I say meet Anna and Elsa first is that the queue for Frozen is a little bit more interactive, and so if you do have to wait in like a 30-minute line, at least there's things that are going to keep the baby, occupied during the wait, versus the queue for meeting Anna and Elsa isn't that interactive for them, so it may be a little bit more boring, so you'd rather have the shorter wait be with that thing first. So that's my biggest recommendation. If you're going to rope drop a park, only one park, I would rope drop Epcot, and make sure to do that first thing. My next note, still on the Frozen line, my next tip would be at Hollywood Studios, take the baby to the Frozen show. And if you can get a fast pass for it, that's great, because Hollywood Studios doesn't have a ton of baby-friendly rides. It's mostly shows and experiences and character meet and greets. And so the one that I will definitely recommend, at least from my daughter, the one that stood out the most for her and in our memories, was the Frozen sing-along. She loved it so much. She was enthralled. And then there's a part, spoiler alert, there's a part where snow falls from the ceiling while Elsa is singing, and my daughter, 10 months old, her eyes just lit up as she's looking around and seeing the snow falling. And I'll insert a clip here if I can find one of that exact moment. It was just such an incredible experience, and I really looked around, and all of the kids in the audience were just eyes wide open. And so I would really highly recommend that experience for a baby under 1, because not all the shows are going to keep their attention, but that one in particular really does. I don't know what it is about Frozen. There's something about it, but these kids. So I really definitely recommend that one. My next recommendation for taking a baby under 1 to Disney is utilize the dance parties. This actually can go along with my character tip from earlier. This is a really cool way for your kid to interact with the characters in a kind of unique way. Disney has been bringing around dance parties lately, and these are so cool. What they do is they just have a DJ playing some music, you get up and dance, and then they bring out 3 to 5 characters that just dance with you. And you just get to dance. They move around from kid to kid, and it's really cool. I will insert a clip here because I know that I have one of us dancing at Animal Kingdom. And even if your kid doesn't necessarily get a picture with them standing still or anything like that, you can get some video of them dancing and partying with a character, and they get that experience. And it definitely was something that was interesting for my daughter. She loves music, loves dancing, and it was a really cool experience for her. And it helped her get comfortable with the characters too, so that she wasn't afraid of them, because they were just dancing around to some music. So yeah, that's definitely a huge one for me. Utilize the dance parties. My next tip is definitely important. You are going to be in a hot climate. You are going to be going for long days, and you are going to be using a lot of energy. So one thing to keep in mind is your baby is probably going to want to drink more milk, or if they're drinking water at this point, definitely more water. Keeping them hydrated is going to be super, super important. And I highly recommend keeping that in mind before you go, and also for yourself. Keep yourself extra hydrated too. But I think my daughter probably had at least one extra milk feeding a day while we were there, just in order to keep up with everything. So keep that in mind. Don't want anybody getting dehydrated. My next tip is that you can have your purchases either sent to the front of the park for you to pick up later, or you can actually have them, I think within 48 hours, have them sent back to your room, and you can just pick them up at your room if you're staying at a Disney resort. I think if it's 48 hours or less before your checkout, or 24, I'm not entirely sure. I'm gonna look at it and I'll put it at the bottom of the screen here, but if you're gonna be checking out soon, then you can't have it sent back to your room because it might not make it back there in time. But if you're going to be checking out, in a few days, you can definitely have it sent back to your room. Otherwise, you have it sent to the front of the park. That way you don't have to lug around, this big sweatshirt that you bought to bring home, or, some huge stuffed animal or something that you picked up that you want to bring home. You don't have to lug it around the park the entire day. You just stop at the guest services on the way out, show them your receipt, grab your purchase, and then head back to your hotel, which is really super convenient. Even better if you can have it sent to your hotel room. Okay, I have 2 more tips for you guys. And the first one is know your transportation options. So whenever we travel to Disney World, we prefer to rent a car. The main reason that we choose to rent a car is that we like to be able to bring our own car seat, have it in the car, not have to worry about, moving it in and out of, any other kind of transportation. And we also like to be on our own schedule. We don't like to have to wait around for the buses to take us to and from the resorts. The one thing to keep in mind when driving is that you may need to take the tram from your car to the front of the park. You won't always need to take a tram, but if you park far enough back, it is quite a walk to the front of the park. So you might have to fold up your stroller unless you want to just do the trek and walk by yourself. Now, you may not want to or may be unable to rent a car for your trip, and so Disney offers plenty of other options, most of them free, of transportation to and from the resorts to the parks, as well as even from the airport. And I'll explain why mostly free in a moment. But the first one is the monorail, and it's really a convenient option if you're able to stay at a deluxe resort, because those resorts actually have a monorail on property. But it also is convenient to get you between Epcot and between Magic Kingdom when you're park hopping. But don't fear if you can't stay at a deluxe resort. The rest of the resorts and the deluxe resorts all have buses to and from the parks as well. Some of the resorts are lucky enough to be located on the lagoon that connects to Magic Kingdom, and those actually have boats for you to travel on. So like I said before, there is an option that costs money, and that is minivans. They're through the Lyft app, and they cost $20 to get you anywhere on property, and I'll explain why those are a great option if you have children. While they do cost a little bit extra, the feature that makes them worth it is that they come with 2 car seats, and the car seats are updated and cleaned and replaced very frequently, so you can be guaranteed that your child will be safe while you're getting driven around the parks. The final transportation option Disney offers is the Magical Express bus, which picks you up from the airport and drops you off at your hotel, and then picks you up at your hotel and drops you back off at the airport at the end of your trip. The best part about taking the Magical Express is that you get luggage tags to put on your luggage, and so you don't even have to pick up your bags at all. They will do it for you, and they deliver them to your hotel room later that day. My final tip is to know when to travel. Now, it's really important to understand what's going on at Disney and how that might affect the crowds, the lines, and your Disney experience. So let me get into a few of the details. If you're lucky enough to be traveling with a baby and you don't have any older kids with you that are in school, you definitely want to avoid the summertime. The main reason you want to avoid summertime is that it is overly crowded with kids on school break. And so because of that, it becomes a super, super busy time of year. The lines get a lot longer. It's just a lot more congested. If you can avoid the summertime,
that would be my number one tip for when to travel. I also say avoid Christmas and New Year's. Those are the busiest holidays at Disney, and sometimes they even get to capacity, which means that they stop letting people into the park because it's just too full of people. So I definitely recommend avoiding those holidays, but honestly, if you can avoid all holidays and even 3-day weekends, you're definitely going to be winning out, because the local people are going to be going during those 3-day weekends and minor holidays if they're off work or off school. So that can add a lot of extra congestion to the park that you want to avoid. I'd also keep an eye out for any big openings that are coming, such as the Star Wars opening or any even small rides that might be opening, because anything like that is going to attract a lot more people and it's going to get really, really crowded.
So if you can avoid big openings like the Star Wars opening, and even small openings like when the Mickey and Minnie Mouse ride are planning to open, that can be beneficial to you. There won't be quite as many people, so the line shouldn't be quite as long. The last part of that I'll mention is try and plan around the Disney sports events. And what I mean by that is cheerleading competitions, band competitions, things like that, when a lot of teenagers are being brought around from the entire country to stay at Disney to do a special competition. We accidentally planned our trip during two. We had the cheerleading competition at one half of our trip and the band competition at the other half of our trip. And so during the crossover day of those, there were so many people in the parks. It was kind of crazy. And it was the one that I hadn't taken into account when I was doing the planning of my trips. I had thought about all the other things planned before a 3-day weekend started, planned after the holidays were over, planned in the winter instead of the summer, but I didn't think to check for those competitions, and that would have been actually pretty beneficial to us if I had. But overall, it ended up being okay anyway. No matter when you go, it's still Disney and you can still have a really good time. Hopefully these tips and tricks have been helpful for you, and hopefully I didn't ramble on a little bit too much. If you like videos like this, please let me know. Comment below and tell me what your best tips and tricks are for going to Disney World with a baby under 1, maybe an older child, or maybe going to Disney on a trip just by yourself. I'd love to hear from you. Please like the video if you liked this. Comment below, subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see additional content like this, and hopefully I'll be making another video like this soon. Thanks again. Bye-bye.